the story of how our HR team has adopted an Agile mindset and evolved the way we think. But first, let me just do a quick introduction to myself. Jason introduced a bit about me, but I am based in our Waltham, Massachusetts office, and I have spent my entire career in human resources. I've held various roles in HR. I won't get into all of that right now, but I've been at Vistaprint for 8 years, and I started to explore how the Agile mindset could be applied outside of technology around 2015. But first, some introduction to Vistaprint. Vistaprint is in the business of helping small business owners realize their dreams. And we do this by providing custom printed, embroidered, and digital products to help them market themselves professionally. We're best known for our business cards, but we have well over 100 different product lines, and accelerating that product line growth was one of the key tenets of our Agile transformation. We have about 7,000 employees in 17 different locations around the globe. Individuals working in marketing, technology, manufacturing, customer care, and then of course your general administrative functions like finance, HR, and things like that. We were founded in 1995 by Robert King, who is our CEO of our parent company, Cimpress. So that's a little bit about Vistaprint. I want to set the stage for just a high-level understanding of the Agile transformation at Vistaprint before we go into the story of Team E. In 2013, it really just started as an idea. Within technology, as you would expect. And it was really in response to wanting to be able to deliver projects faster within the organization and to drive more value for our customers. So they started out with a bunch of experiments. We didn't say, we're going Agile and we're going to be, Kanban or Scrum. We just started with some experiments to see what this Agile mindset was all about and how we could apply it. And they started to have a bunch of quick wins, and we were delivering value to our customers faster and getting projects completed much quicker than we'd ever done before. And so good things that happen at Vistaprint travel fast. And so other parts of the organization, like marketing and creative, and they started asking themselves, how might we apply the Agile mindset within technology? And this is when Talent and Experience, which is what you would think of as a traditional HR team, began to think about what is this Agile and how might we apply it in our work? And that's really when I became interested in Agile. So our team is called Talent and Experience. It is what you would think of as a traditional HR organization. We didn't change the name in 2015. That has actually happened over time as we've evolved our strategy. But when I speak about Talent and Experience, I'm really speaking about what you might think of as traditional HR. Okay. So how we actually got started in 2015 was really in response to feedback that we were receiving from the organization, that our performance management process felt really outdated and no longer represented the way that we were working in an Agile environment. Individuals were receiving feedback annually, and it was delivered by your manager. So you would submit to your manager several people that you would want to get feedback from. Your manager would collect that, and then they would summarize that and share it back to you. But it was anonymous, so you didn't really know where it was coming from. And as a result, it really prevented a rich dialogue and understanding of that feedback. And we had some ideas about what we might want to do. We were understanding that other organizations were starting to move away from an annual process, but we didn't want to just implement a new process. And we wanted to get feedback from our employees. And so we reached out to individuals in our technology organization that were much further along in their Agile journey and said, what do you think we should do about this? And they actually recommended that we hold an open space. And so I don't need to tell you what open space is because we got some education on that yesterday and we're experiencing that here at the conference. But what we decided to do was look at our performance management process broadly. And we posed the question to our team members, what should we do differently to grow and develop talent? And so we said, if you're passionate about this topic and you have feedback for us, we'd love for you to attend an open space. So we sent an open invitation to all of our employees in our Waltham, Massachusetts office and our Barcelona, Spain office. And we had about 40 employees in each location participate in the open space. It was a half-day session that we ran. They generated a lot of different ideas. And ultimately, what we heard from them is that they wanted to have faster feedback loops so that they could continue to learn and adapt faster. And so ultimately what we did was incrementally, we moved away from this annual performance management process to a process that is now led by our employees, that's flexible, they own it, they're responsible for their feedback. So we needed to equip them with the tools that would be necessary in order for them to give and receive feedback. And we did that over time, and we have shifted the mindset away from evaluating the past to really thinking about the future and how we can improve our future and our development. And so this experience of engaging the employees and asking them for feedback on a process that is important to them and impacts them was really a pivotal moment for the HR team in thinking about how we can approach our work in a very different way. We really liked this idea of co-creating with our employees because we knew that we were delivering something that was meaningful for them versus us assuming that we had all of the answers and rolling something out in a big bang way. So this was really the beginning of what we would consider our Agile journey in HR, and that was in 2015. And so while this was going on, we were beginning to engage more deeply with the employees around some of our processes. Other parts of the organization were getting a bit more mature in their Agile thinking too, specifically in creative and marketing. And so we realized the need to create a centralized coaching team. And so we expanded our small coaching team that we had of about 2 or 3, and we added 7 new coaches. And we added them in Barcelona, Berlin, and Waltham. And I actually raised my hand to participate in a 6-month intensive training to become an Agile coach. And I paired up with Melissa Rockman. You can see her picture here. She's in our Waltham office. And as part of our coaching, we needed to engage with a team and coach a team. And so we chose to focus on talent experience, given my background in HR and me knowing that the team was already kind of primed with a bit of an Agile mindset. And so when I go forward to talk about our coaching engagement, when I refer to we, I'm referring to Melissa and I because we really partnered on this together. So we had a few goals with our coaching engagement that we aligned with the talent and experience team. As I mentioned before, they were beginning to make some great progress. They wanted to have a different kind of impact within the organization. And most of you feel probably that HR has been an impediment to your Agile transformation, and that's not the experience that they wanted to have within the organization. HR is often viewed as being slow, reactionary, more in support of protecting the organization than actually enabling a really exceptional employee experience. And so we said, why don't we focus on trying to deliver faster, be a bit more proactive, and actually have a strategy around delivering a differentiated employee experience. And so what we needed to do was understand where the team was. There were some individuals on the talent experience team that had some exposure to Agile. They had heard it, in the organization. They knew what the word was. They were misusing it. There's a lot going on. So we decided what we would do is we would introduce them to the Agile Manifesto and the values and principles, but not really as you see here. If you look at this, there's many software-centric words in it. And we had, through our Agile transformation as an organization, realized that this language here was an impediment for us to actually really bring teams along and help them along their Agile journey relative to the mindset. And so we developed a version that we call the Vistaprint Business Agility Values and Principles. And you can see highlighted up here some of the words that we changed so that this would actually be applicable across the organization, so no longer being an impediment and a barrier to teams thinking about how they can apply the Agile mindset. So what we did was we hosted a session with the team, and we said, this is a journey. We don't expect you to be on board with every one of these values and principles. We want to have a discussion with you, and we want to understand how you might apply this in your organization. And we want to have you give us a thumbs up if you're on board with the value or the principle, thumbs down if you're not, and let's just talk about that. And so we held a session. It was really positive. We introduced them, to these concepts, and they were excited to continue the conversation. And so what we did next was we said, let's start visualizing our work. Let's understand what we have going on. And so we started with Kanban, and the board that you see here is the result of a 1 hour or 90-minute session we had with them where we introduced the concepts of Kanban and then actually created a physical board for them to be able to visualize their work. But what we didn't do was introduce them to all the principles of Kanban. We said, let's pick the first, which is visualize the work, and that's where we started. They immediately saw value in this in terms of the visibility, and we identified some duplication in work. And as a result, the team started really kind of communicating more about their work. So we recommended stand-ups, and we started holding daily stand-ups so they could have the face-to-face communication. And then we introduced retrospectives and said, okay, you've now been doing this Kanban board, you've been having stand-ups, let's talk about how this is going for you and how we can continuously improve. And then later on, we introduced product reviews. And so this didn't happen in a week. It happened over 3 months. So it was really important for us to kind of bring the team along at a pace that pushed them, but also was comfortable for them in their journey. So They started engaging with the organization. They started adopting some Agile principles and ceremonies and things like that. And they knew that their focus as an organization wanted to be centered around this employee-centric experience that I talked about. And they started researching a little bit about what some other companies were doing in the Agile and HR space. And they were inspired by various podcasts and other things and decided that they wanted to establish a really firm purpose around employee experience. So they asked Melissa and I to facilitate their team offsite a year ago. And there we determined what their purpose would be. They co-created their purpose. And this is their purpose: to create and enable a customized and exceptional employee experience that inspires and supports our teams to deliver their best work for our customers. And what might some of the challenges be? And you can see the list of challenges was way longer than the enablers, but they didn't let that slow them down. We actually kind of dug into some of those and said, okay, well, if these are some of the challenges, how might we overcome them? And ultimately what they decided was that they needed to reorganize around their work. And so they decided that they would approach the employee experience as a product. And then the things that we would focus on within that would become our product experiences. So what this looks like in practice is that we have a number of product experiences, which you'd think of as traditional HR, but we approach this very differently. So we have a product owner that's responsible for thinking about what the strategy is relative to that experience, and they go out in the organization and get feedback from our employees, and then they bring that back in. And we have a team of people that's responsible for delivering against this in an incremental way, where there are feedback loops along the way. Our delivery lead is probably a cross between a scrum master and a project manager, and we have an Agile coach, not necessarily embedded within each team as it's depicted here, but really to help them think about how do they evolve the way they work in an Agile way, because we've asked individuals that have never worked in this way to work very differently. So we're coaching them along the way to get there. And then the last point I want to make about this is that the green circle that says team members. So our team members are either members of our talent and experience team, or they're actually members of the organization. So if you are passionate about one of these experiences, we give you the opportunity to give a percentage of your time to actually help us evolve the way we think about that particular experience so that we really are meeting the needs of the organization. And so that's how we are focused. So this was a year ago that we reorganized. We're learning a lot along the way, and we're adapting how we work. But I want to share with you just a couple of ways in which we've coached the team specific to some of those product experiences and what we've done. So the first is, about a year ago, we started an engagement with an outside vendor to implement a new HRIS system. And the vendor came to us and said, okay, it's going to be about a year before we can actually deliver this project. And we said, well, actually, we kind of work in this Agile way, and we'd love to bring you along on this journey if you're open to it. And this was actually one of our criteria in selecting the external vendor that we used to implement our system. And they said, sure, we'll give it a try. So what we said is, in order to be successful, we feel like we should kick it off, the engagement, with the team formation. And we should align on what our team norms are, what our guiding principles will be, what kind of Agile ceremonies we might have, and how we're actually going to think about this project incrementally so that we can deliver something to our employees much faster than this year that they had quoted us. And as a result of that, we delivered our first increment of a HRIS system to our employees in just 3 months. And so we've kind of incrementally been hearing feedback from the organization on how this is going and modifying it and adapting and delivering more modules as we go versus a traditional big bang approach, here's your new HRIS system. So we're pretty excited about that. The next thing that I'd like to share with you is interview games. So Melissa went to Agile 2017 and she sat in a session by Jason Tice, who introduced this idea of interview games. And she brought them back to the product owner of Acquire and Onboard and said, I really think that if we implement some of these interview games, it will help us to better evaluate culture fit and really richen the experience of the employee and the conversation that we have in our interview games. And so you can see the quotes and read the quotes up there. I won't read them to you. But what we have found through this is we actually started experimenting within our own talent experience team, so those that we were hiring into our team. We tried out some of these interview games. We love this sailboat feedback one, so this is actually something we do towards the end of the interview because feedback is so important and employees own their feedback. We want to get a sense for how employees feel about this in the interview process. And so we talk about, it's like the metaphor of the sailboat exercise that you might use in a retrospective. We talk about what are the things that are going well for you, like what will help you be successful in your role, and what might be some of the rocks that could get in your way. Not that, they aren't going to, sink the ship, but just some of the things that we anticipate might be a challenge for you. And we have a really open dialogue about that with the employees, and we're getting really positive feedback. We now actually use this exercise across the organization. Individuals are using this to solicit feedback from their teams as well, so that's kind of fun. And the last thing is that as you think about Agile as you think about the role of a leader in an Agile environment, it's evolving. It needs to evolve. So we believe that our leaders are responsible for setting clarity, building competence within the team, and enabling autonomy. And this actually comes a bit from the David Marquet book that we introduced when I was introduced. So we have taken an incremental approach to this, and we are building this program, not in a big bang way as most traditional HR organizations would do, but we're taking it kind of module by module. And so we started out with clarity, and we developed the content and the approach to how we were going to engage the organization in upskilling and changing the mindset of our leaders. And we worked with our CEO and our top executives to really align around this approach to leadership. And we delivered our first session probably 6 months ago with a cohort of 40 individuals, got some feedback, how did they receive it, what might they need from us, and then we have adapted a bit more. So this is just an example of how we're approaching our work in a more agile way. I want to leave you with a couple of things. It's been a tremendous journey for us that we've been going through, but if you were thinking about how to get started based on some lessons learned, I'll share with you a few. So the first is meet them where they are. So this is a journey, it's a change. Remember that change is hard. Be empathetic to that and really meet the team where they are. Go at a pace that is a little bit uncomfortable, but comfortable enough to bring them along. Start with mindset. It's really important to explore how those values and principles can change the way that you think. And so just like we did, we started with mindset and really had a conversation about that. And language really matters. So the manifesto was written for technologists, by technologists, and if that is an impediment for you, then think about how you change the language within your organization so that it's not a barrier. I would also recommend that talking about experiments or just giving it a try, like is it safe enough to fail, these kinds of things really help encourage the team along in their journey. And lastly is experiment and celebrate those small wins. So the role of a leader was an experiment. We actually went out and said, hey, we're not going to deliver you this fully baked leadership program. So that leads me to the last one, which is set expectations along the way. So we're engaging with the organization very differently, where we're asking employees for feedback. We're asking for them to participate in these experiences. And you need to be very clear about what your intention is here and what you're trying to do. And that also helps bring the employee population along in the journey. And so that's all I have for today. I would just say to you that, like I said, it's been a journey. We will continue to challenge the status quo. We haven't figured it all out yet, but we're really super excited about what we're doing. And we're starting to get recognized within the industry. There's some articles that have been written about us. There's some podcasts, and that's really fueling the engagement for the team too, which is really fun. So that's all I have in this short amount of time. I'll be available for questions if anybody wants to engage with me. They're in open space or at lunch or something. Thank you.
Thank you.